because we are talking about getting things started this afternoon, I thought I definitely would include that in the recording for you. Just a really quick test at this point. I have up on the screen a message that to raise your hand if you can hear me. There's actually, the icons changed slightly, but I think you'll get the point that you can raise your hand if you can hear me. If you can't hear me, then you're probably reading the message and hopefully you're able to find that speech bubble icon. But looks like hands are being raised, so that's exactly what I'm looking for. I was talking with some folks earlier as they came into the room, so it also looks like my microphone is working as intended. All good news. I see Amanda's just joined us, so we'll see if she kind of jumps in there. She's already engaged. Awesome. I'm also sort of taking attendance as I see folks come in. So I'm making sure everybody is marked as being here. So again, I was talking about how I'm going to model the practice in this particular workshop. In some ways, kind of honing in on these points I'm trying to make, these tips I'm trying to make, of how to get your students started in your online course. So one of the things is we really want to make sure that the students are comfortable with the technology, which is why I'm sort of walking everybody through it, especially if you're new to the process. It's really important to be comfortable with the technology so that it's kind of something that the students can get over and really jump into more of your content maybe. I know we have a lot of folks from OMIS here this afternoon, and so all of their stuff is about technology. So, you know, you can't always get them over all the technology hurdles right off the bat, but hopefully they're not struggling with how to use Blackboard, or in this case, how to use Blackboard Collaborate Ultra. For the recording sake and just sort of to welcome everybody to the session, let's kick things off. So here we are in the Quality Online Course Design series, Getting Students Started. This particular workshop aligns with Quality Matters Standard number 1. Some of you may or may not be familiar with Quality Matters. It's not critical to your success in this workshop today, but if you are familiar with it, you'll understand what I'm talking about. So again, I know most of the folks in there can hear me, but this is another example of how, if you are using live sessions in your course, you kind of want to go through this activity, and maybe every single time you go in there, because it's always kind of worth it to go through the audio setup and to make sure that your students can hear you. And that you have some alternative ways maybe of contacting them or communicating with them throughout the session, which in my experience is often using the text chat area. Again, I'm just kind of still keeping up with my attendance as things go along. The next instruction that I went over with the folks that arrived a little early is how to access the text chat panel. And you can do that by clicking at the bottom right-hand side of the screen. There's a purple button with a couple little arrows in it that opens up the Collaborate panel. There's another icon that looks like a speech bubble. Finally, a box that says Say Something, and you can type your message in there and then just hit Enter to return. If you do want to set up your camera and microphone, you can do that through the profile area, which you can do by clicking on your icon at the bottom. If you haven't set up a profile already, it will just look like a silhouette. And you can see the microphone and camera icons also in that bottom panel. I do expect quite a few people here this afternoon, and so I think so that we're not talking over each other, or using up a lot of bandwidth, that we will just keep it to the text chat at this point. But again, that is an option if you're going to use this platform or a similar platform with your students. Have them kind of check out those settings. Maybe at an earlier session, or again, maybe that 15 to 10-minute window before your session is going to start. So one of the most important things when we're talking about getting students started is to get to know each other a little bit. So normally I introduce myself on slide 1, but I've been kind of waiting because we're going to all get to know each other now. So when you're having an online course, you still want to make sure that your students get to know each other and they get to know you. So a couple of the tips that I'm going to go over today is how you can do that in your online course. So I'll start by introducing myself a little bit more. This is a similar screen that I would have in my online courses. It could be in your instructor page, it could be in your contacts page, but I'd like to take it a little bit beyond what you might see in a normal contact page. So there's definitely information about how to contact me or even to follow me on social media. But I also let the students know a little bit about my background. And I can do that kind of at a variety of levels. So, how formal or professional do I want to be versus sort of how informal or casual do I want to be with my students? And so that is something that you can determine for yourself. But here's where I kind of land, and I think it's probably somewhere in the middle. I add a more casual picture of myself than maybe the standard, very portrait, formal kind of photo that might show up in other areas. Give them a little bit of background about my education and my academic interests, because when I teach courses, it's for the College of Ed, so that my academic interests, I think, makes the most sense for me. If you have a more professional background, maybe in business or sales, or maybe you're in curriculum instruction. I know we've got some folks from curriculum instruction. Whatever sort of makes sense. Where else do you teach at, for instance, if you're in K-12? Then I share a little bit of, I guess, more personal information, but information that I'm comfortable sharing with my students. And then finally, I might put either something that I've authored, like I have here, or maybe conference presentations. If you have more of a business background, you may put where you work outside of the university. Any of those things that you think might help introduce you to your students. And again, it might be something that you already have in there, or you have some of these components, and you can decide to expand on that or not, again, based off of whatever you're sort of looking to share. But I am hoping that you will share some things right now about yourself. If you could go into the text chat area and share your name, department, and experience with online teaching. And a sort of a bonus round, if we already know each other a little bit, can you share a little something else about yourself that you don't think others know about? So go ahead, just take a couple of minutes to do that in the text chat area. For the sake of the recording, I will probably be kind of reading out loud some of these comments so that we can remind ourselves later of what we were talking about in the text chat. And while you're typing, I'm going to make sure my attendance is up to date. Okay, MPOW has taught 2 online classes, 5 sessions between 2009 and 2012, University of Scranton. Scranton, Pennsylvania? I've been through Scranton, Pennsylvania. Awesome. Okay, Amanda from English. Not taught an online class. Okay, well, hopefully you pick up some pointers today. Charles from Ole Miss and has no online teaching experience. Again, hopefully you pick up some pointers today. Bill has a degree in math as well as in music. I did not know that about you. Thank you for sharing. I think those two things go hand in hand, though. Cheng Lu, Ole Miss Department, new to online teaching. Well, welcome to online teaching. Christian, Ole Miss, no experience. Shinar is from Kahi, international doctoral student. No experience on online teaching, but willing to learn. Great to have a great attitude about that. Jim, from Oxo Corporation, potentially developing and teaching master levels digital marketing class. Haven't ever taught an online course. NIU alumni, yay Huskies. Applied computer science. Thank you everyone for sharing a little bit about yourself. That really helps me to get to know you. It also helps me to get to know kind of the experience level of the group. So a lot of new folks, but a lot of new folks that have a really positive attitude. So that's awesome. Stephen from Almost No Online Experience has taken a lot of online courses for computers. And your experience as an online student is also going to be valuable. So I'm really glad you're here. We did talk about the microphone button, but again, as new folks are sort of coming in, I see Varun just came in. We're going to keep our microphone buttons off for now. Again, just so we're not talking over each other. But one of the things that I find kind of, I don't know, maybe I'm kind of funny at your expense, but if you have your microphone button on and you know, you cough or you somebody walks into the room or the dog barks, we can all hear that. So it's usually a good idea to kind of keep our microphone button off when we're not talking. I would like to share some workshop etiquette with you this afternoon that I think will make our experience together more successful. So first of all, if you do have a question and you'd like to use your microphone, we can certainly try that out. But if you could just raise your hand when you want to do that, that way I'll turn my microphone off and kind of stop talking and you can ask your question. Also, you can text chat in the text chat area anytime you want. I do try to find sort of natural breaks in the workshop to ask for questions, ask you to type things in, maybe even stop what I'm doing for a minute to be able to answer your questions. But again, anytime a question or comment kind of comes to you, go ahead and add that into the text chat area. We're going to try a couple simple shortcuts. If you want to reply to somebody in particular, you can add the @ sign and then their name, and that way they will know that you are talking directly to them. In this case, I'm going to tell Varun that I have no problem with tardiness at this juncture, so I've added that into the text chat area. If you agree with somebody, you can add a +1. So if somebody gives a really amazing suggestion, or maybe even something that they've had difficulty with, and you just kind of want to say that you agree with them or you're favorable to that, you can use the +1 kind of shorthand, I would call it. So I guess what I'm saying is that I would encourage you to really use the text chat a lot, and that I personally in this environment is okay if you use emoticons or some shortcuts. Tips for success in today's session. Minimize those direct. Good, Charles. I like the sunglassed. We're all hoping it's sunnier out today. I'm glad you're all having some fun. Minimize the distractions around you. I talked about some of those already. If the dogs are barking, they were vacuuming and mowing lawns around my office right before this session started. So I was really happy when everything sort of quieted down before we got started. Focus on the presentation instead of taking notes necessarily, because there will be a recording afterwards. And so if that's how you can kind of concentrate, don't worry about losing the notes or anything, because you will get a copy of that recording later. Ask questions, again, anytime you want in the text chat area, but also feel free to answer others. So if you see a question in there and you have an answer, you have a thought, or like the last one, if you want to share your own thoughts or ideas, please, this is a dialogue, this is an interaction. At any time, feel free to do that and add that into the text chat area. And I want to make sure that we are caught up on all of our text chat and my attendance, and I think we are. Jenny just joined us. Jenny, we are in communicating a little bit in the text chat area, so if you'd like to try that, click the bottom right-hand button that is purple with a couple little arrows. That will open up the Collaborate panel. And then the first speech bubble icon after that, awesome, you figured it out, great job, is where you can join us for the text chat. So my workshop objectives for today, I'm really hoping that you'll be able to, for your students, explain the importance of the course, but also that you will understand the importance of introducing your course to your students. This is really going to help them feel connected to the course. It really is a course. It's not something that's just happening off in some other part of the world that has nothing to do with them, but it also is going to help them feel connected to you and to their other sort of course mates in there. I'm hoping that we're all feeling a little bit more connected this afternoon. You're maybe seeing colleagues that you recognize, but also maybe seeing some others that are in the same shoes that you're in right now. I'm hoping that this will allow you to help students understand the purpose and structure of an online course. I'm going to give you some really specific, exact ways that you can do this, tips and strategies for helping your students understand the purpose and structure of the course. So we're definitely going to get into that. Also, to provide students with essential information on how to be successful in their online course. I think I was pretty intentional about that when I went over some tips, like minimizing some distractions and other things like that. But that's one of the strategies I like to use to help you be successful in my online workshops. So let's have a little bit more interaction. Add to the text chat area what you do on the first day of a face-to-face class. So just kind of share some of the activities that you do on the first day of class. Icebreakers? Absolutely. Get things, the tension levels down. Introductions, icebreaker, review syllabus, introduce each other, self-introduction. Amanda says expectations and textbook, go over the syllabus. So a lot of the things we've been, again, I've been kind of modeling them in the workshop. I think some of the new things we're seeing is kind of reviewing this syllabus, going over your expectations, going over the course structure. So yeah, we're going to kind of go through all of these things, and I think you've identified a lot of the ones that I had in my ideas as I was preparing for this workshop. You're going to introduce yourself. You're going to go over the course. You're going to review the syllabus. Many of you mentioned going over the syllabus. Expectations, I tie into this idea of maybe you're going to go over your policies. expectations might be going over your expectations for how you like to be communicated with, any of those sort of things. Definitely first day kind of activities. Introductions, icebreakers. You may even do a little bit of content on that first day if it makes sense. So is there any kind of prerequisite knowledge that you want to at least get a baseline on with them, or even doing a little bit of lecture? These are all very common first day activities. My big suggestion for you this afternoon is that online courses are no different. You're still going to do these activities with your students, and they're important for all the reasons that they're important to do in your face-to-face course. The only difference is maybe how you're going to do these things. So how are you going to have an icebreaker? How are you going to kind of go over your syllabus with your students? How are you going to let them know what your policies and expectations are? So that's what we're really going to talk about today. So one of the things I'd like you to do is think about it from the student perspective. So we are going to take off our instructor faculty hats and we're going to put our student perspective hats. So for those of you out there that were online students, I know we had at least one person that was an online student in their past, and other kind of experiences like that. Think about your course from the student's perspective. And so we kind of break it down into this one acronym. So the first thing students really want to know when they first get into an online course is the what's, when's, why's, and how's. So, what's the course going to be like? When are major due dates coming up? Why are they even taking this course to begin with, and how they know how to find things in the course, which is always nice to kind of segue into the navigation part. So the N in this one acronym. They really want to know how to locate key components. And the course design is all about where you've put those key components that make sense for the students to be able to find them. And sometimes, even if it makes complete sense in our heads about how things are organized and how they should navigate through the course, it doesn't seem as obvious when the students are in there for the first time and they are not able to mind read everything into your course. So anything that you can help them to know where to find these things and how to navigate through the course, it's so important to the student's success. And then the final getting started idea activities is all about not only establishing the relationships between you and each other, but also the relationships that content might have to each other, or how are things going to fit together in the course, and giving them kind of that initial bird's eye view of how things are going to unfold in the course. So as we kind of go through those things, think about what you could do in your course to kind of get things started for your students, but keep this in mind of what the students are experiencing as they do this, and that might help really help your course design. So here are some principles for introducing a course to your students. First of all, here's the reasons why you really need to introduce the course to your students. And that's to help them to connect with each other, but also to let them know you care, that this is not some kind of trick or some kind of maze to have them learn their way around your course, that you care about them and you care about their success in the course, so you're going to do what you can to help introduce the course to them. You're going to help them understand the purpose and goals of the course. So again, how does that fit into their sequence maybe? And what are they going to get out of the course? What do you hope they're going to get out of the course? All of those things are important to introduce to your students early and upfront. Help them understand the structure and the flow of the course. So um, what's going to happen over the next 8 weeks if you're doing a summer course, or 16 weeks if you're doing a full semester? How are things kind of structured out? How's the flow going to go? And you don't need to give them all the details, but are they going to have a quiz every week? Are they going to have a major project that's due, and you're going to reveal it in different phases? So they're going to have an outline and a draft and a lit review and, all of these sort of things. Anything that you can kind of help them with early on is going to help them be more successful. Set expectations we talked about earlier, and we talked about how it really helps the students, but it also is really going to help you, because the more the students understand the expectations of the course and your expectations in particular, it's going to help your workload going forward, because they're going to understand those expectations. Simplest sort of example is your expectations for emails. So if you let them know that you will respond to an email within 24 or 48 hours, they should not expect an answer from you sooner. You may absolutely, but hopefully they're not hounding you for I just emailed you 5 minutes ago and you haven't answered me yet. If you set those expectations, it's going to really help your workload too. And then, of course, the course introduction is just going to really help your students to be successful in the course, because they're going to be prepared to kind of dig into that content, which is what we really want them to be ready to do when we talk about getting students started, sort of in that first week of the semester, maybe. So here's some pointers to get students to connect. And I keep kind of breaking this down into more and more detail. So whenever I talk about interaction or connecting with faculty and classmates, I always pull up this diagram. So this is sort of this three-way street of interaction. And so there's faculty, there's students, and there's content. So here I'm talking specifically about this interaction between faculty and students, and it's this sort of two-way connection. So I've got these arrows sort of going both ways. So you want to be able to connect with your students, and you want students to be able to connect back to you. And you also want students to be able to connect with each other. So any way that they can get to know each other and connect with each other, that's going to be really beneficial. So we've done some examples of that in our text chat area, but that can also be a discussion board. Really, discussion board is probably the most common way to get students to connect with each other. And we'll definitely talk about ways that discussion boards can help your students connect with each other. But let's first talk about some tips I'm going to have for you of that course introduction. And the first one is to create a welcoming and informative page. And you can create this page and then change the course entry point of your course from the home page, which is the default, to this welcome page that you have. And you can do that under customization in Blackboard. Let me make sure I have the exact right instructions. Yeah, under customization, you go to teaching style, and teaching style will allow you to change that course entry point. So that way, when the students first get into the Blackboard course, they're going to see this welcome right up front. And so they can already start to do some of their activities in order to learn about the course and learn how to navigate around the course. So we start off with a description of the course. Again, it just gives them a really good, it could be the course description that's in the course catalog, so they know they're in the right spot. I have some getting started activities. So here's the first 4 things that students should be doing when they get in course. First, they should view the information posted on course content, and that's just a left-hand navigation area that I've created. Download the course syllabus. So we said one of those opening activities was going to be to review the course syllabus. So that could be simply by, telling them to download the course syllabus, open the course syllabus up from the left-hand navigation, anything like that. Next, they can review the units and assignments information, and then finally, the materials found in the resources and resources. I apologize, everyone, for my phone ringing. I usually mute it. It should stop eventually, right? And then I've added the course learning objectives here. This helps the students understand some of the goals that they can get out of the course. The purpose for taking the course is a little bit implied in the course learning objectives. I also add the ADA statement in my course welcome. You can add it to your syllabus. You need to add it to your syllabus, but I like it kind of front and center in the welcome. I've also added just some details over here on the side that I think students, a little bit of those wheres and whens a little bit in here. So any face-to-face meetings that I do have, intended live meetings or face-to-face maybe on-campus meetings, I like to add into this area. Any kind of additional contact information that I'd like to add in here. And then, specific, this is actually an example from Stephanie Richter's course. I add a variety of contact information, but I also add some information about what my preference is for being communicated with. So there's a lot of information in there, but it's sort of condensed and brief into this one page. So hopefully it's not too overwhelming for the students. So I really recommend that welcoming page. This is a little bit of a different way to introduce yourself to your students, and I used Jason Rohde's course as an example for this one. It's a little bit different than what I showed you earlier about my introduction, and that is adding a video. So if you create a video of yourself as the course welcome, that helps connect you to your students a little bit more because they're seeing you, they're kind of seeing maybe your excitement for the course. It kind of will start off in a really positive way because they can see your excitement and passion for the course and the discipline. So it's just one of those maybe comfort level things on how comfortable you are with doing a video like this. This really helps Jason show off his personality, so he likes to do a video. He's also shared a little bit of a different professional background. This is just, again, another way of maybe doing the same thing just a little differently that fits your personality. Again, this is my more professional level, I guess, introduction. So I've not only created some of the things we talked about early as far as contact information and professional background, but I've also tried to let the students know what I feel my role in the course is, and hopefully they understand how we can connect with each other because of the way I see my role in the course. Specific to this, what I like to point out is that for the discussion boards, the way I kind of go at discussion boards is I will let the discussion board be something more for the students to be able to react to each other. But I will be in there watching the discussion board, and I will definitely answer the question and answer type discussion board. So if students are looking for something, or they're confused about something, they can ask their question in the discussion board and I will respond to them. I'll also be steering the discussion a little bit. So if I do see that they maybe have some misconceptions or they're getting sort of off track, I'm going to help try to steer them back on the right path. And I also add my communication expectations to that. So hopefully they're not sending me all those emails, right? About, well, I asked this question and, you didn't get back to me in 5 minutes, or, how come you're not replying to all these discussion boards? That's maybe an assignment to the course. And if it's an assignment to the course, I really think that discussion boards should be a little bit more interaction between the students before maybe I step in. Here's a different way that students can introduce themselves. And it's a discussion board, but the idea behind it is that icebreaker. And a lot of us talked about the icebreaker. So what kind of icebreaker activity can you do using the discussion board tool? So this one is just an activity in which the students are all asked to come up with 3 different symbols of their identity. So this is an example for them. They can follow it or not, but if you have 3 identities, for instance, you're a mother or a parent, perhaps you want to say I'm an instructor or a teacher, and then maybe you work at NIU like this example here, but maybe you want to say that you're an alumni of NIU, because I know we have an alumni here. And so your symbol is going to be the husky or something like that. So it doesn't have to be this, but this is the idea, to just kind of get the students to be creative and kind of introduce themselves in maybe kind of an interesting way. In my particular course, I have them do two truths and a lie. So they share 3 things about themselves. 2 things are true and 1 of them is a lie. And then the other students reply by guessing what the lie is. And so that actually gets a lot of back and forth discussion. And it helps them remember a little bit about each other. And maybe they realize that there's maybe several dog owners out there, and suddenly they realize that there's a lot of pet lovers in the course, and they have that way to kind of connect with each other. A lot of times they share their majors with each other, and so then they're connecting because they realize that they're in the same major with each other. There's just a variety of activities that could be the icebreaker. So I'm going to ask for a little bit of introduction again. A little bit of interaction, excuse me. So share with the group an icebreaker that you like to use in your course. And add that to the text chat area. Maybe as folks are typing stuff in, I see Amanda just added some. I'll share one thing about yourself that no one else would guess by looking at you. That's awesome. And, there's a little bit of a challenge, right? Because you may not be able to look each other in an online class, but that's okay. Have them share a picture and see if they can guess that thing, or have them create a Blackboard profile and then they can add a picture to themselves there. Jenny says, I teach reading, so I like to have students give their metaphors or analogy of reading. They go around and complete the statement. Reading is like because. I love that. And that's already getting their kind of, reading juices flowing. I love it. Introduce each other on career objectives and hobbies. Yes, good idea. That's got a little professional feel to it and a little bit more, um, personal with a hobby area. Father of twins, huge fan of college football, dog lover, meat lover. Yes, so that you've got all of your identities, and now I know like so much more about you. I just adopted another dog, by the way, so I'm a dog lover myself. Um, is it different when it's online? Sometimes I asked if they are a musician in a group. It is different when it is online. Sometimes I ask if they are musicians in a group. Yeah, and just try not to discount anything because it's going online. Think if there's a way that you can be creative about that. So you can certainly ask them if they're musicians, but maybe you want to say, what's your favorite band? Are you a musician? Yes or no? And what's your favorite music genre? And that's all kinds of things that they can add to a discussion group. They can also add videos or pictures. So maybe they're adding a YouTube video of them playing in a band, which you may not be able to see if you're on a face-to-face course. Questions to ask them to talk about their expectations for the course. I like that because that's letting you know kind of what their goals and our expectations are, and how is that kind of unfold going forward. Introduce yourself and share hobbies. One instructor asked us to post a YouTube video, and that was sort of I used the example of playing in a band, but yes, students can absolutely introduce themselves, upload the video to YouTube, and maybe even have that more personal connection because you're going to see their faces and their emotions. Awesome ideas, everyone. So this next one, purpose and goals of the course. My tip here is just to be really clear about it. Let them know, here's the purpose of the course. Call it, this is the purpose of the course. And just let them know either how that fits into their sequence or maybe what you think the purpose of the course is. Another way, again, we've been talking about videos, is let them know through a video that you create. Again, so maybe they have that more personal connection because they can see your face and your excitement about the course through a video. So in this case, I've turned on the closed captioning in Jason's video when I took the screenshot, so you can say, you can see that this was exactly what he was talking about in this video. Ask your students to reflect on how the courses relate to them. And I think that gets at what Kirsten was saying about that. Ask them about their expectations for the course. So, you can do that through a discussion board. In this case, this is an example from one of Stephanie Richter's course. She's given them some choices in what they can respond to. So maybe something's going to be a little bit more meaningful to them than another, so they can choose which prompt to respond to. Structure and flow. Let's talk about that a little bit. How are we going to introduce our students to the structure and flow of the course? So one of the things in the course design, because that's what we're talking about here, is how we're going to design the course. Create some sort of comprehensive schedule. This might be very detailed in your course syllabus and almost like overwhelming in that first day. We talked about that first class. They want to know some of those basics, some of those key due dates maybe, maybe even some meeting sessions that they need to be there to attend. So the course schedule gives them a lot of information, but again, very brief and succinct, that really helps them with those questions they're having in their head. You're giving them the answer all in one place. It also helps you to organize yourself when you're designing the course. Okay, I'm chunking things up into units. I know the dates for each one of the units. I've scheduled maybe any face-to-face meetings or online meetings. And then I know that there's going to be a variety of due dates. Because of this course schedule, I can see that I've kind of spaced them out in a really manageable way. So not only is the comprehensive schedule good for your students to know, but it kind of gives you a checkpoint of where you're at in your planning. This is just one example of a schedule. I've got another example for you that's just a different way of doing it, but the idea is pretty much the same. It's a table. This gives a little bit more detail about what the assignments are. The last one was more just sort of very brief introduction of what the assignment was. Again, little less, it's all what you're comfortable with. Is more always better? That's a really great question. I'm not sure. It may be a little too much. Just looking at this second table here, I almost am getting a little bit lost because there is a little bit more detail in there. I find that the students really just want to know, when's the first thing due? And then, when major due dates are. They're not quite as concerned with too much of the detail early on because they're just kind of trying to get through this this first week, this first day. So more is not always better. I like to create a course tour. So I do this through a screencast. So a screencast is just the ability for the computer to kind of take a picture of what I'm doing on my screen, and they can also hear my voice. So I literally will just navigate through my course while I'm explaining to the students how they sort of need to navigate through it. And so, they can have this open, they can see how I've outlined things, where they can find things, and they're just simply seeing me click through it and hearing my voice describe it. Again, this is another really good checkpoint on your navigation, your course design. If your course design and your navigation has missing links to it, has kind of an interrupted flow to it, or what you're going through the tour and you forgot where you put something, that's your indicator that maybe things need to be a little bit more buttoned up and have a little bit more structure, because if you're having trouble navigating through it, certainly your students are going to. But once you get that right, do a course tour and let your students know how to kind of poke around in there. The other thing is if they're poking around in there, over here on left-hand navigation, I've created that welcome, start here link to that introduction we talked about earlier. So as they're kind of looking around spots and suddenly they don't know how to get back to kind of that ground zero where they started, they can see that welcome, start here. Very obvious that they can just sort of go back there and kind of find their way back to the beginning. We talked about expectations, so let me give you some practical strategies on how to let your students know about your policies and your expectations. Create an area in Blackboard. Call it something like information, call it course policies, whatever kind of makes sense to you. Maybe it's what you call it in the syllabus. And add these different items into your Blackboard course. Let them know what your late work policy is, your incomplete policy. Again, maybe it's in your syllabus, but we all know about students and their diligence of reading through syllabi. It's not always what we hope. So just providing this in the Blackboard course, a little more front and center may give them a little bit, I guess it just helps them see the policies a little bit easier than digging through multiple pages of a syllabus that maybe they have to download. I also like to add the academic integrity policy. Any of these policies that you think are important, add them into the Blackboard course. Make sure they match with what's in the syllabus, but once you know that they match, just do a copy and paste and make it easier for the students to find it. Make it easier for you to point to if they have a question about it too. If they're like, I didn't know that was a policy, you can say, please review this part of Blackboard, it's right there. Any way you can set your expectations for participation. Let your students know about in the syllabus and maybe in that information area. Participation can be a little bit different in an online course. Face-to-face course, it's often attendance, right? So attendance can be a little bit different in an online course. So in this case, I'm letting students know that their participation is really going to be graded based off of how they post in the discussion boards. And so I'm just really giving them some ideas about what I mean by active participation so that they can meet those expectations. Etiquette. We did a workshop etiquette at the beginning of our time today. Any kind of etiquette, and somebody's going to ask me, do you have a good example of a discussion board etiquette? There's thousands of them out there. And I often just mix and match ones that make sense to me into my class. But again, you're just letting the students know what your expectations are and how they should interact with each other in a discussion board. So polite, you may want them to be critical of each other, but not creating an uncivil environment. Level of professionalism you want to be really clear about. In this case, for a discussion board, I'm saying no slang, emoticons, any of that. I told everybody here today they could use emoticons and some shortcuts. Glad nobody had used any slang. Thumbs up to everybody out there. But the idea is just to let them know what those etiquette expectations are so that they meet them and they don't cross the line. How can you help your students to be successful? We talked about adding policies. You can also create a section that students can access called student support. So any of those support units that are available to you here on campus, or some other support pages maybe that are important to your discipline. Create some links, some pages for the students to be able to find easily. You may find that this support page kind of grows over time. Your students maybe are struggling with writing, and you can provide them with a link to the writing center. So, you know, maybe that's not something you anticipated up front, and now you're going to help them be successful by adding that support link. So remember, your online students have a lot of the same supports that the face-to-face students have. So you're helping them. This also helps them know, again, that you care because you've built this into the design of the course. Any of these design tips are great because you can use them over and over again when you do course copies. So this work up front that you're going to do in the initial design of a course is going to just pay back years and years from now. You see, I also used in the workshop a tips for success. in my online courses, I like to do a tips for success for overall for the course, and then I do a tips for success each week. So I know that there's something that's going to come up that might be a stumbling block for the students, and so I'm going to try to get ahead of that and create sort of this tips for success page. When I first do a course, I may not be able to anticipate the tips as much, so that usually is something that builds over time. But there's no problem with you discover something in week 2 that you know may come up again in week 4, so that's just something that you can build into your course as it goes along. We talked about this earlier, so we're running out of time anyways, but don't forget to have specific steps on how to get started and give them that welcome start here indicator in your left-hand navigation so they can always go back to that. After a couple weeks into the course, if you want to change that course entry page again, you can always go back and change it. I like to change it back to the announcement page instead of the home page, because to me the announcements, I usually put the most current announcement up on top, and that's what I want them to focus on, you know, as they enter the course on any given week. Any prerequisite knowledge. That is something that is often gone over the first week of the course. So anything that you think that they need, whether it is a very strict prerequisite knowledge, like you should have taken this course before, or maybe it's just a skill or something that you think would really benefit them in being successful in the course. Add that as an item in your Blackboard course, maybe in that welcome page, maybe in any kind of getting started area, to just remind them that these are the skills that are really going to help them be successful in this course. Any technical requirements. So in the email that everyone received for this workshop, I actually had a way to connect with Blackboard Collaborate Ultra if you need them to test any requirements. If you need them to buy a headset and microphone, or a piece of software, any of those technical requirements, make sure that's something that they can see early in the course, so that they are not asking, do they really need speakers and headphones to join the Blackboard Collaborate session? You know, let them know ahead so they're not rushing out the last minute and trying to acquire these things, you know, maybe right before a deadline. So whenever I do these workshops, I do want to tie it back to Quality Matters a little bit. So I've taken all of the bite-sized specific review standards in Quality Matters, and I've broken it out into this sentence. So if you do all of these things that I have suggested this afternoon, you will have met Quality Matters standard number 1. So quality online courses help students understand the course, including the purpose, structure, policies, etiquette, and how to get started. Help students feel connected to their instructor and their classmates. And it informs students of prerequisite knowledge, technical skills, and technological tools that would be required in the course for them to be successful. So I also have a checklist that I'm going to send out in the follow-up email. You can use that checklist to kind of do your own self-audit of your course, and you might find that helpful. I'm happy to talk to anybody about what they might want to add into their course, but I'm also excited to hear some feedback from you on the workshop. I just added the workshop survey into the text chat area, so if you want to take just a couple minutes now, you can get that over with. But here's just a couple of our favorites I guess, that we've talked about this afternoon. So if there's something you want to get started with, here's what I recommend you get started with. Thank you, everyone. You are welcome. I'm glad to see everyone here this afternoon. Feel free to contact me. Here's my contact information if you want to have more conversations about your online teaching and your online course design. Thanks, everyone. You're welcome. Good to see a good group today. Yuping, I'm going to send the recording out in a follow-up email. I just need to get it downloaded and published. Next couple days. You're welcome.